Hi, everyone. Welcome. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Thanks for joining if you're with us live or if you're watching later. Before we begin to talk about the thoughts, the ideas that I just wanted to share for a few minutes, I thought we could begin with just a short coming to this moment meditation, just arriving, taking a step away from the busyness of your day, whatever that looks like for you today. If you're watching this live or you are watching it later, I invite you to just take a rest, take a pause for a second, put down whatever you're doing, put down your work, your computer, your phone, and give yourself the gift of a few minutes of stillness. If you're sitting in a chair, notice if your hips feel balanced and centered. Maybe you're resting your feet on the ground and you can feel the ground underneath the balls of your feet, your heels, supporting you. Are you resting your hands in your lap or on your knees? Just notice your hands, what they feel like right now. Maybe try turning the palms upwards to the sky, letting your body come to a place of rest. And bring some awareness to your breathing. And take 3 slow breaths. Slow inhales and slow exhales. Maybe it's the first time that you've paid attention to your breath today. Maybe not. If it is, then let yourself relax and sink into that noticing. Letting everything else that was occupying your mind, just let it fall to the side. For now, you just rest your attention on the slow, long intake of breath, and then the slow exhale of breath. Knowing that for these few moments, that's all you need to do. Everything else will wait. If you just use these few moments to bring your full presence, full being, full attention to where your body is right now and what your breath feels like moving in and out of your body. The inhale and exhale breath is a constant reminder to us of the ever-present need to take in and let go. A condition of life that is accepting and releasing. With each inhale, we take in, we open ourselves to the breath, and each exhale, we let it go. We release our grasp on the breath and just let it be exhaled. When you feel ready, take 2 deep lung-filling inhales and exhales. You can join when you're done. So today, for just a few minutes, I wanted to just share a few thoughts about a reality of life and a keen reality of parenting, which is change and growth. And in many ways, as parents, we know, right, without any question, that that's a part of life, that our children are growing and changing and evolving, and that part of our role as parents is to hold them and to shepherd them and guide them as they go through that process of change and growth. And it's inevitable. We can't slow down the clock as much as we might like sometimes. And I know probably all of us as parents have had the experience of looking at pictures or having moments where we notice our children and are kind of shocked that they've grown, they've changed, they've become people that, right, we can't always connect to those baby pictures, those toddler pictures that we remember so well from the early years. And as we're thinking, especially focusing on these past few Facebook Lives on the teenage years and parenting our children through those teenage years, the teenage years are such an enormous time of growth and change. And we know that if you're parenting a teen, you know that right, in adolescence, physically they're changing, mentally they're changing, emotionally they're changing, in every way. And sometimes the pace of change can just kind of, take our breath away. I remember with all of my kids that there was kind of a 1 year where they became young adults, just physically and in their voices, their bodies, the way they held themselves. Every single time I wasn't prepared for that change. And so sometimes we can know that change is true, and we can also find it very hard to deal with and to adjust our parenting relationship, our parenting identities, and our relationship with our kids to the pace of their change and growth. And sometimes we come into moments of friction and conflict when their change and growth is not on pace with our ability to parent them in that place where they are, that we're playing catch up all the time, and that sometimes there can be a mismatch in the rhythm of change between our children's lives and our own lives as parents. And the question really is, right, how can we cultivate ways as parents to respond to that rapid change that we see with our children, those shifts, those movements, sometimes away from us when they step towards greater self-sufficiency and independence, for sure in the high school years, and then when we send them off to college, if they move out of our home. These are periods of enormous change, and they can really stir up a lot of emotions for parents. And so what I wanted to just talk about a little bit today is how just some different ways that we can think about kind of preparing ourselves as parents to continue to hold and support our children as they grow and change and sometimes step a little bit farther away from us. And it's a process that takes continual reevaluation. And we ask ourselves questions that can sometimes be very painful and hard and disconcerting, right? When we have to think about, do they need us in different ways now than they may have needed us before? When do we as parents step in to help them, to support them? When do we need to step out, step back, right? And how do we as parents manage the feelings of loss when our children don't quite need us in the same way, they don't rely on us in the same way, right? We may know intellectually that that's all good and that's developmentally appropriate, and also it can be really hard. And so, I was thinking about this idea that we talk about in the mindfulness tradition about impermanence. This idea that change is inevitable, that nothing is permanent, that we have to face the reality that everything is changing all the time. Our children, ourselves, our lives, our relationships. And, there's a beautiful quote that I think about all the time by Thich Nhat Hanh. And he says, it's not impermanence that makes us suffer. So it's not the reality that everything is changing that causes us suffering. What makes us suffer is wanting things to be permanent when they are not. So to me, that's very instructive and illuminating. That ultimately, what's so hard about the change is not the change in itself, it's that we don't want things to change. That our response to the change is what makes us suffer emotionally. And I think, like I said, sometimes it's just instinctive that, we want things to stay the same because we know them the way they are. We figured out how to relate to our children at a certain age or stage. We kind of have a handle of things. We love the preciousness of maybe a certain age or stage. And we're not ready to let go of that and to really kind of release our hold on what is, because it's new and it's uncertain. And so thinking about this idea of change and about emotional suffering, I come back to the book of Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes, which has a lot of beautiful, mysterious, and really provocative ideas within it. But the very beginning of the book of Kohelet says, Havel Havalim Amar Kohelet, Hava Havalim HaKol Havel. Everything is Havel. And there's different translations of what that means. That everything in the world is total Havel. What is Havel? Sometimes they say Havel means futility, meaninglessness. Some people see that verse as indicating that we shouldn't get attached to anything too much, right? Because it's ultimately worthless, meaningless, futile. We won't go into all of that, but another translation that I tend to gravitate towards is the idea that Havel means breath, impermanence. And that this book is a reminder to us that everything is always changing. Just like our breath is always going in and out. And that's why this verse, the beginning of the book of Kohelet, to me is a reminder both of the reality of change, of constant change, and also whenever I think about that idea of impermanence and continual change, and I can feel myself starting to feel like, uh-oh, I'm starting to get really anxious thinking about that idea. Havalim brings me back to my breath. And that's that internal tool that we can always access. That is that embodied reminder that we take in and we let go. And that parenting is all of that all the time, right? We accept in, right, with love, our children, our children's needs, but we also have to let go. We also have to do that releasing. And that is often much, much harder, that exhale. And so it's a real challenge. And I just want to acknowledge that's there, especially as our kids are growing up through the teenage years and they're experimenting with boundaries, with how much they, as they kind of evolve into their selves, how much they want to rely on us and how much they don't, how much they want to prove to themselves in certain moments that they can handle it, they don't need us, right? There's a lot of push and pull in the teenage years, a lot of stepping towards us and then stepping back, opening the door and then closing the bedroom door, right? Um, and it can be an emotional roller coaster with our teenagers. And so I think that if we can employ this idea, first of all, the tool of the breath, like as a go-to reminder that we can always kind of turn to in those moments of anxiety when we're not ready for the change that's happening, that this is the process of living and this is the process of parenting, that we open ourselves and then we let go, we take in, we hold on to, and then we also release. And that we need both of those. We need both, and our children need both of those. We have to cultivate greater equanimity and peace, I think, in responding to the inevitable changes that we're going to see with our children. And every day, if we can begin each day with this notion of hitchadshut, of kind of approaching each day as a new opportunity to open ourselves to what's present. Each day we can train our minds and our hearts to remain open and present to what is right now, who our children are on this day. And also, right, understanding that tomorrow they may be very different. Today my child may want to cuddle and may want to be with me, and tomorrow my child might need some space and might want to have some time alone. And that's part of the growth process. And if I can, as their parent, release my tight-fisted grasp each day on what is right now, then I can be more open to the fact and the reality that tomorrow could look very different. Tomorrow's not going to be a duplicate of today because my child's not going to be a duplicate tomorrow of what he is today. So we have to guard against becoming too attached, too firmly wedded to who our child is today, because hopefully and inevitably our child will change and grow, and that's really what we want. And so in part of supporting, I think, our children's growth and change is sometimes stepping back and giving them the space to do that, kind of stepping in and stepping back as they need to. But the only way that we can sometimes do that without being flooded with anxiety and emotion is to practice our own tools and call on our own tools and practices to help us maintain a sense of calm and balance and centeredness and perspective on these roller coaster years of parenting teenagers. So just wanted to share those thoughts with you today. And if you have any experiences that you wanted to share, feel free. You can write them in the comments, and look forward to hearing from you. And also, if you are a parent of teenagers, February 23rd, we are starting a cohort of the Peaceful Parent Project that will be just for parents of teenagers, and I'm really excited about it. So reach out if you have any questions. I would love for you to join the cohort.